Okay, welcome everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the special meeting today. We'll go ahead and start with a roll call.
Joe Anderson,
Present.
Jay Arnold,
Here.
Todd Bayreuther,
Here.
Justin Borgo,
Here.
Micah Chappelle,
Here.
Tony Doan,
Here.
Damon Doyle, Tom Handy,
Here.
Roger Harenga,
Here.
Matthew Hepner, Craig Holtz,
Here.
Ty Menser,
Here.
Pete Reiki, Katie Sheehan,
Here.
Caroline Trove, and ex officio members Keith Gaynor, Lauren Lathrop, John Lovick,
John Lovick is here.
Alex Ramel, Linda Wilson,
Here.
Dirk Mirabachtal,
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Hearing 11 present, so we do have a quorum. Okay, let's go ahead and go to, is there anyone from the public that would like to be recognized? Okay, Bruce, go ahead. Bruce, go ahead. You should be able to turn your microphone on at this time.
All right, now. Yeah, my name is Bruce Rathbone. I'm with the Citizens Climate Lobby here in Richland, Washington, and I'm just a concerned citizen about the effects of climate change. And that's, I would just like to comment if I can.
Not at this time. This is just a welcome and introduction.
Sure, okay. Mhm.
Okay, and if you could, under your attendee name, can you please type out your name? Some of these are just kind of abbreviated. I have Edmark C next. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Chris Edmark with Thurston County. I didn't realize that it was abbreviated. I'm just listening in and seeing if I need to say anything. Thanks.
Thank you. Stephen, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Steve Gann. I am also with Citizens Climate Lobby, and I want to submit some comments when it's time for that.
Okay, Andrea, go ahead.
Hi there, Andrea Smith, Building Industry Association of Washington.
Okay, thank you. Tim, no last name.
Tim Atterbury, Associated General Contractors of Washington.
Okay, thank you. Deepa, go ahead. If we can allow Deepa to speak.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. This is Deepa Sivarajan, Washington Local Policy Manager at Climate Solutions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to be recognized? Rod, go ahead. I thought I saw another hand. It disappeared. Rod, go ahead.
Rod Kaufman with the Building Owners and Managers Association, Seattle King County. We are the folks that are members of the folks that manage and own commercial real estate, office buildings and the like.
Okay, thank you. And I have a Gramley C. Again, please type in your first and last name in the attendees list.
We'll do Corey Gramley, Clayton Manufactured Homes based out of Albany, Oregon.
Okay, thank you.
Or do it and just not put a door in it, create a dead space. And then, oh, what about dead space? Huh?
Can we mute that mic, please? Thank you. Brian Ludwig, go ahead.
Brian Ludwig with Innova Architects in Tacoma, Washington.
Thank you, Brian. Larry, go ahead. Larry, go ahead.
Larry Andrews, Andrews Mechanical. Thank you.
Sean, go ahead.
Hello, Sean Dennison with New Buildings Institute.
Thank you. Okay, excellent. With that, we're going to move to the next item on the agenda, which is review and approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Thank you, Joe.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Chell and a second from Micah. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any against? Okay, motion carries. Okay, and Derek, how long do you want to do for the executive session?
Yeah, thanks, Tony. We think 30 minutes is probably too short. So at the risk of seeming overly indulgent here, can we say an hour?
Absolutely. Okay, the council will now meet in executive session to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation to which the agency is or may be a party, when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency as allowed by RCW 423110, 1 subsection I. The council will be in executive session until 11:08. The council is expected to take further action following the executive session. Thank you.
So I will repeat the same thing. You need to leave this meeting and then join the executive session, and you will wait a little bit in the room, and I will allow you to join the meeting.
The council is extending the executive session for a period of 19 minutes until 12 o'clock p.m. Thank you. The council is extending the executive session for a period of 5 minutes until 12:05 p.m. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. Let's go ahead and do a roll call.
One minute.
I can do the roll call if Krista has technical difficulties, and I apologize in advance with the last name, so don't. Chill Anderson.
Here.
Jay Arnold.
Here.
Todd Bayruter.
Here.
Justin Forgot. Justin?
Here.
Thank you, sir. Apologize again for the last name. Micah Chappelle,
I'm here.
Tony, Don,
Here.
Damon Doyle, Tom Handy,
Here.
Roger Heringer,
Here.
Matthew Hebner,
Here.
Craig Holt,
Here.
Ty Menser. Ty? Okay, we'll wait for him a little bit. Pete,
Out in the general public.
okay, Ty is here. Pete, Ricky, Katie,
Here.
ex officio members, Representative Keith Gunner, Lauren Latrop. He sent me an email, he won't be able to attend. Senator John Lovick,
I'm here.
Representative Alex Ramel, Senator Linda Wilson,
I'm here.
okay, Dirk,
Here's Troyan, thank you.
and we have a quorum.
Okay, very good. Okay, let's go ahead and move to agenda item number 4, which is discuss potential consequences of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision in California Restaurant Association versus City of Berkeley for the Washington Energy Code and take possible action on options to address those consequences. Dirk, unless you want to speak to this, I'm going to open it up to council discussion to start.
I don't have anything to add other than what was in the agenda, Tony.
Excellent. Okay, very good. Chell, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess we spent some time with our attorneys and have a bit more clarity on the legal risk. So given that, I think we need to delay the codes and enter a CR 101 process for rulemaking. Last Friday and at prior meetings, I was on the fence about delaying the codes due to training, but a delay will also give us time for that to occur. I think it's in the best interest of Washingtonians to delay the codes, sort of CR 101 process today, and modify them so that they have a significantly lower risk under the recent Berkeley decision. And in looking at the codes, there are a few provisions that appeared to be covered by the Berkeley ruling. My understanding, EPCA in the Berkeley ruling allows energy codes to regulate appliances so long as there is a pathway to include minimum efficiency appliances while trading off for higher performance in other ways. So I guess that's where I'm standing here. And often our practice is not to make motions, but I'd be willing to make a motion when the time is right to do those things. And I've also gone through the energy code, the commercial energy code, and the residential energy code. And there appear to be ways to make them compliant with the recent Berkeley decision without sacrificing the energy performance in a noticeable way. So I guess it's a pretty surgical. There's a few strike throughs under the modeling paths for the commercial and residential codes that would allow minimum gas efficiency appliances to be used in the state under the energy codes, but not sacrifice the energy performance that the legislature has told us to make. Anyway, that's what I have to say for now, and I'm happy to make a motion when the time is right.
Okay, thank you. And just a reminder for council members, we do have public comment on this. And so at some point, if there is a motion made, I would like to get to public comment before we take action on that. So Micah, go ahead.
Thanks. I'm not looking to make a motion just yet, but what Jill's talking about, and for members of the public or attending the meeting that may not be aware of what has occurred,
and what is being discussed. The Energy Policy and Conservation Act has some provisions in it that allow codes, building codes in specific, to have some exemptions that would allow them to be enforced and not violate federal preemption. Based on a decision from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals against the city of Berkeley on the prohibition of certain items and a broad interpretation of federal preemption, that has come to our attention, of course, and that's why we're here today to discuss that. In addition to that, we have received some new information on new litigation that was filed at the, I want to say, Eastern Washington federal jurisdiction against the SBCC. And it's not just a Ninth Circuit ruling on a different jurisdiction, but this is currently related to us. And based on that, of course, I'm going to agree with Chael that we need to delay the codes and look at going into further rulemaking or modified rulemaking process upcoming and go from there. But I know that a lot of the things we were concerned with is risk. And of course, code officials have somewhat of a different risk than SBCC board members, in that they're tasked with enforcing the codes, and the jurisdictions would take on additional risk if they enforce codes that went against a judgment at the Ninth Circuit. So we want to look at mitigating those through modified rulemaking and a delay of the codes. So I'll look forward to supporting a motion from whoever makes that after we have some public discussion. Thank you.
Okay, Todd, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I support the CR 101 process. I think some of the pathways that would be considered were already considered in the main process, and many of us were advocates for it. So I do believe we should move into that rulemaking. I don't believe that they have to be coupled with rulemaking to delay the code. So I'd like the council to consider those separately, perhaps, if there's support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion? There'll be more opportunity for that after public comment, but if there isn't any right now, I'd like to go to public comment. Excellent. At this time, please raise your hand if you have public comment on this. Okay, we'll start with Rod. Go ahead.
Just a point of clarification. The Berkeley decision seemed to speak to the word appliances. Do you folks consider boilers like in office buildings appliances?
I would answer yes if you're asking. Yeah, I would.
Thank you for that clarification.
Anything further, Rod?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Larry, go ahead.
I would ask you to do a complete restart of the energy code deal and get the people here together to find a middle ground of where you guys were the people that supported this initiative and the people that didn't, and try and find a middle ground in between that all of us could live with. And I don't think the West Side people actually listened to what the East Side people had to say. They might have listened, but there was no bending. And that's not the way it's been in the past. And I hope that's not the way it's going to be in the future. But there was many proposals put forward to kind of find a middle ground here. And there was no thought by the West Side people to allow that to happen. And we on the East Side feel that our needs are valuable, and no thought was really given to us over here. They just didn't entertain what we tried to tell them. And from a person that's been in the business since 1977, it's done this kind of stuff since 77. we took it very personal that you didn't listen to what we have to deal with every day on a day-and-day basis. And all this highfalutin heat pump stuff sounds really good, but when it's in actual use and it's been in the field sometimes, some period of time, the people that are suffering are every one of us in this state, because many of the projects that I'm having to go back on right now are costing hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring them back to where they could be. And this technology that's available is still in the learning stage, but it was brought forth like it's the whipped cream on top of the cake, which it isn't. It needs to be put in a very specific way with very specific mechanics that are allowed to work on this stuff. And the bigger it is, the more complicated it becomes. And the general HVAC techs out there are not capable of maintaining this equipment right now or getting it installed properly all the time. And so we're living with fire departments that have put this stuff in that are having to go back and rip it all out and start over again. And the problem is you can't put a conventional system in now because there was no room for it. And so you're back to re-spending more money for every citizen in this state to re-engineer it, rip it out and put it back in, and hopefully it'll work better the next time. But it's been very costly. And thank you.
Thank you. Laura, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because I can't see myself. I'm a concerned citizen. I just want to ask that you do not reduce or eliminate the authority of the State Building Code Council. I live in Richland, Washington, and it is on the east side. My understanding is they're working towards making buildings more energy efficient, primarily by these heat pumps that are new technology, do work well in cold climates. And because of our green, hydroelectric power here, there really isn't a reason to be using natural gas. So I really hate to see anything that would reduce the authority of the State Building Code Council and the work they're doing to implement the Climate Commitment Act and the Green Buildings Act. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Stephen, go ahead.
Yes, I'm also in the east side. I live in Richland. I'm a climate scientist and leader of the Tri-Cities chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby. And I also volunteer with Habitat for Humanity building homes. And I just had a heat pump and a heat pump water heater installed in my home, which I'm very happy with. I first want to commend the work of the State Building Code Council for your efforts to make building codes consistent with the Climate Commitment Act. While emissions from homes and buildings are not the largest CO2 source in Washington state, without your revision to the codes, they would become the largest source as transportation becomes electrified. You preserved some consumer choice of heating systems in new homes and buildings. That will diminish resistance from consumers who do not appreciate the economic and health advantages of heat pumps. Moreover, as summarized in the April 18 post by the Sabin Center for Climate Change Law, your approach is quite different from the Berkeley ban on natural gas. I'd be surprised if the Ninth Circuit ruling applies to your revision of the codes, but what do I know about that? I want you to know that I fully support your efforts on this matter. Building electrification and efficiency is a priority of Citizens Climate Lobby. Your approach complements the electrification incentives available from the Inflation Reduction Act. Thank you.
Okay, Johnny, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I mostly just wanted to respond to the question from Rod and kind of give you a response, Micah. EPCA has 19 covered products, so it's not, they like define what the appliance is that is covered by EPCA. So it's not just like, there's a pretty well-defined definition of what an appliance is. It's not just like up for interpretation. And I think there is a size limit on, I believe it's boilers, but I think it's boilers above a certain size. And I'll be honest, I've been reading a lot about EPCA in the last couple of years, and I still don't have it all down, but you can look into it further if you want to know which products are covered or which aren't. Yeah, I understand y'all are in a tough position, so I'll don't have much to comment on that. Thank you for your careful consideration, and yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bruce, go ahead.
Yes, I'm with, I live over here in Richland, Washington. I am a member of the Citizens Climate Lobby chapter here. And I just want to say I really support what the SBC State Building Codes Council is doing to try to implement the Green Buildings, Clean Buildings Act and their mandate to do so. And I am very concerned about climate change and the legacy that we're leaving our children. I think it would be a tragedy in a state that has cleaner than average electricity to continue to use or allow the use of fossil fueled heating appliances. So I encourage your continued incorporation of whatever requirements or at least strong incentives towards the use of heat pumps. And I guess I would add that I'm not, from what I've read, the newer heat pumps, this is not exactly, I mean, it's new, but it's rapidly being developed thanks to the Department of Energy's cold climate heat pump challenge. There's a number of manufacturers that have already developed units capable of performing well down below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, or maybe certainly below freezing, but down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So as this technology is rapidly developing, I understand the training issues for technicians, but anyway, I'm not an HVAC expert, but my information suggests that this is a rapidly advancing area, and I think we should stick with it, especially in an area that has, and in Eastern Washington with the low cost of electricity and the clean electricity, it's a real tragedy to be using fossil fuels. So that's my comment.
Trace, go ahead.
Yes, Trace Justice, Snohomish County building official, speaking on my own behalf. And I would just like to address the aspect that we were talking about at the first part of this conversation in regards to the implementation of the codes. And I would like to see that maybe it should be delayed until November. We're trying to get the Washington State codes published, and that's not going to happen until actually get published until after the July 1st date. And that, in addition to just the timing as far as training that we need to do on multiple codes that are before us, including the energy code, and getting staff up to speed. We've had enormous turnover in staffing this last couple of years, and it's been hard to find qualified people to fill the positions. So I would support the motion as well. It wasn't a motion, but I support the concept of getting the codes delayed until we have a chance to get all these things put into place and implemented, and our bulletins and all the stuff that we need to do for public notification. So thank you.
Deepa, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say quickly, this is Deepa Sivarajan from Climate Solutions. I think most other folks have covered the points, but we appreciate the rough place that you're in with this and hope to see a future version of the codes that is strategic and targeted to allow it to comply with EPCA. Thank you.
Andrea, go ahead.
Hi, Andrea Smith here from the Building Industry Association. We would support a delay. I think it makes sense from the training aspect as well as the legal question aspect, and would definitely recommend your support in this endeavor. And I think I'm just going to leave it at that. Thanks so much.
Cam, no last name.
Yeah, this is Tim Atterbury with Associated General Contractors of Washington. Like what I hear today, as far as supporting a delay, I think that makes sense. Want to piggyback on what BIAW just said. I think just based on the last year of testimony, I didn't hear a lot of conversation about how a natural gas ban would conflict with federal law. I think that should have been looked into, obviously, at this point, and it wasn't. I think that discussion should have occurred and have really looked under the hood on that. So I hope we use this as a lesson to learn from.
Kathleen, go ahead.
Hello, thank you. My name is Kathleen Petrie, and I'm representing King County today. And because there's no reason to delay the other good 2020 amendments associated, such as with air leakage rate reduction, wall insulation, R-value increase, et cetera, could the council consider delaying only the sections of the energy code that are related to the court decision in question, such as sections R40313, space heating, and R40357, water heating? That is a question to the council. The other suggestion I would make is that there are millions of dollars in IRA funds that are going towards technical code assistance for states and jurisdictions. So I would encourage, if this decision is made, that the State Building Code Council or in partnership with Commerce apply for these funds so that we can get the proper training that jurisdictions and professional industry folks need. Thank you very much.
Says NHA meetings 1530. Please state your name before public comment. Okay, is there any other public comment?
Lance Clark, Northwest Housing Association. We represent manufacturers, retailers, lenders, and associates. We're happy to see that the rules are delayed till November so our industry can be better prepared. Specifically, in addition to the building codes, the wildland urban interface, we've submitted a written testimony that Stoyan has a copy of, and we left a dozen copies at the physical building. We would just say that because we have existing inventory, that we need a good 6 months to move that inventory before manufacturers have the capacity to act with their DAPIA requirements to meet the new codes. And so we appreciate your consideration and discussion of the grandfathering of existing before the rules go into implementation. Again, thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Chris, go ahead.
This is Chris Edmark. I'm with Thurston County. I'm glad to see that the council is willing to put off the codes for the training purposes, especially for the factory built structures who are kind of like getting caught with this WUI requirement. And we're working out the details, how we're going to work with the LNI in order to get any kind of modifications made. Maybe all the stock will be sold by them, and that will be great. Even the regular builders need this time in order for us to give them information on how we're going to act with WUI, and so they get trained on what they need to submit to us. I'm sure the other jurisdictions would also agree. Thank you for your time.
Okay, is there any other public comment? Okay, Derek, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Derek Rock with Clayton Manufactured Homes, and I just want to echo Lance Clark from Northwest Housing Association and the last public comment as well. For manufactured housing, we have some pretty grave concerns about the economic impact of essentially requiring we estimate 800 or so units of manufactured housing that are currently built to comply with the new WUI code. Whenever that implementation date is, we would request that SBCC sort of follows California's lead on how they implemented HCD 1 and 2 and allow us to base it off the date of manufacture of the house rather than, whatever cut across date there ends up being for the codes. Thank you.
Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Brian Ludwig with Innova Architects. We're architects here in Western Washington. I fully understand the interest in reducing demand or focus on fossil fuel dependency. I do support the idea of delaying the adoption until there is a full legal understanding and industry understanding of the ramifications of this direction. As an architect, I understand from a homeowner, large scale commercial project aspect. And there were some points that Larry had made previously about equipment reliability, knowledge, systems, service knowledge, that it has been extremely troublesome in the industry, costly. Another item I like to point out is the IBC, it establishes priority of protecting the structure. You have to protect the structure in order to protect its occupants. And while I encourage a reduction in a dependency on fossil fuels, I'm also interested in a reliable fuel source in protection of structures. In Western Washington here, I've experienced numerous times of flooding or power outages where these buildings that are, I'll say, freeze protected or have some heat source that's providing heat for protection of the structure, that is lost when it is a electric only situation. And with a gas service, it doesn't take much to, provide that backup or emergency service to protect the structure. Maybe there could be a better idea and an approach of encouraging the elimination of fossil fuels through a point system, that there would be a strategy there where you're almost kind of creating a lead program where, okay, we're encouraging a reduction of fossil fuels, but you still need to achieve, there might be some hurdles in that avenue as well, but at least it still kind of keeps that door cracked open for those that would prefer the use of fossil fuels.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing no more hands. So with that, that concludes public comment for this agenda item. We'll take it back to council at this time and open it up for further council discussion. And Todd, your hand's up, but it might be residual. I'm not sure. Okay.
It is, but I'm happy to use the opportunity. Thank you, Chair. So again, re-emphasizing, these are two separate rulemaking actions that are being proposed. I don't see that they're coupled. I want to focus the meeting on the intended agenda, that this is about the legal aspects of this, the issues of training or delays for training and other implementation have already been considered by this council. So again, I ask the council to focus on what needs to be done in terms of the legal aspects, and I support CR 101 rulemaking process to find a performance-based pathway to address this issue. So thank you.
Thank you, Chell. Chell, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm willing to make a motion. Is that in order at this point?
I think it is.
Okay, I will make a motion to do a few things. One is start the CR 101 process for modifying the commercial and residential energy codes to make modifications to reduce the risk of EPCA preemption. And I leave it to staff to tell me how detailed this motion needs to be about beginning the CR 101 process. And the second thing would be to delay all the codes for 120 days from the effective date of July 1st, 2023 via emergency rule. That would be the motion.
Okay, second part, sorry, is to delay,
all the codes
okay, delay all codes by way of emergency rule.
for 120 days, which is the maximum under emergency rule. And I'm willing to state reasons why that's the motion
Okay.
I'm making.
And just for clarification, the emergency rule would go into effect June 30th, correct? Is that
Yes, yes, whatever date the codes would be effective. I thought it was July 1st, but if it was June 30th, then so be it.
I just don't know if we have to be the day before or after. Derek, can you clarify on that?
Yeah, I can. I want to make sure everybody's on the same page regarding what the requirement under the APA is. The 120 days is as long as an emergency rule can stay in effect unless it is a subsequent rule is filed, right? So the timing of when that rule goes into effect is when the rule is filed. So if you were to want the codes to be delayed starting July 1st, the emergency rule, that's called a CR 103E, would need to be filed on June 30th, which is a month from now.
Okay. That will be, I guess, part of my motion would be to file the emergency rule on June 30th, such that it will be effective for 120 days. And that would be delaying all the codes, and I can speak to why that is. If
This
there's
is
a second.
Roger. This is Roger. I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Chael and a second from Roger. And just before we open this up for discussion, just to clarify, it's to start the CR 101 process to adjust the commercial and residential energy codes to reduce the risk related to EPCA and delay all codes 120 days, starting June 30th.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Would you like to speak to your motion, Chael?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. I realize that a code delay has significant impact on industry, and I wouldn't entertain the idea lightly. But when the Berkeley decision was handed down, it became obvious that the council is under the geographical jurisdiction of the Ninth Circuit. We need to comply with their ruling, or else leave ourselves and our building officials open to legal risk. Training is also necessary, especially for the WUI and the energy codes, and I heard that at other meetings. I agree with some other council members that delaying one or two codes would burden designers, code officials, and builders with multiple interactive codes with different start dates. They're not enforced at the same time, which is why I believe that delaying all the codes is the right motion to make. And after serious consideration, I don't think we can fix this today or in less than it takes for an off-cycle rulemaking process involving a CR 101, a 102, and 103, and that's going to be 120 days minimum, and it could be much longer than that. So this is pretty serious, and I think we need to be thoughtful about our response to the Berkeley ruling. And that's why I made the motion I did.
Okay, thank you, Chael. Roger, would you like to speak to your second?
Yeah, I just agree with everything that Chael said. I wanted to add the point that the legal landscape is changing on a weekly, daily basis. And I think that it is prudent for us at this point to bring our energy code into as significant compliance as we can. I don't know that we will, again, we don't know what may change next week or the month after, but there's enough that has changed that I think we can make moves that are bring our codes within significantly closer to compliance and have hopefully minimal effect and also limit the delay hopefully to the 120 days. I think any other action we could have taken probably would have dragged the process out with the same result. So I think this is the fastest path for us to make some adjustments and then move forward with the new code and begin the process of adopting the next code cycle or faced with that coming up starting this fall as well. So.
Mr. Chair, can I speak again?
Go ahead.
I would also like to ask staff to help me clarify the motion to be, so for the CR 101 process, I don't know how much information needs to be part of the motion in order to start the process. So Stoyan or others on staff, was that enough direction to start a CR 101, or do I need to revise the motion?
That was enough direction.
Can I get a point of clarification? Can I get a point of clarification from Derek before we continue this discussion? Is it prudent to have, or can we have a motion that includes both an emergency rule and a entering rulemaking in the same motion? Or should we separate those? Like Todd mentioned, to decouple those. I mean, I understand we want to move forward with both of them, but is that allowed, Derek?
Yeah, that's so yes, it's prudent. I won't speak to that. Can't pretend to have expertise on that, but I can, I'll say I think there might be a Robert's Rules question there that we would want to give a little bit of thought to, and I haven't been looking that up, but I can start right away. In the meantime, I think it would be helpful to have Stoyan provide some feedback on the direction on the CR 101 language.
And point of order, and for Derek's consideration, I was looking up a motion to divide. A motion is generally always in order, and just requires a majority vote and is not debatable.
I can make this easy by just modifying my motion, if that's kind of the will of the council. And sure, I'll revise the motion to not delay the energy codes for 120 days via emergency rule, but simply to start the CR 101 process for modifying the commercial and residential energy codes to make modifications to reduce the risk of EPCA preemption. I'll modify the motion to do that.
Roger, do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Okay, that's my motion. I've spoken to it already, so.
Okay, very good. Stoyan, do you want to provide some feedback?
For the CR 101, it's enough information, but what we're doing after the CR 101, because shall we follow the same process, starting with the technical advisory group, or we put together a proposal and go directly to the council? This is the direction that we need to proceed. For the CR 101, we're good.
Okay.
Is that something I should speak to as the maker of the motion?
Do you need direction today on that, Stoyan?
Well, I guess I do, because I need a direction from the council.
Understood. Chell, go ahead.
Okay, I guess I have a question about, so the CR 101 goes out and it needs to be filed 30 days before. Well, okay, Stoyan, could you walk us through the CR 101, 102, and 103 processes?
So we filed the CR 101. You're correct. It needs to be published, not filed, published 30 days before moving to the second step, which is the CR 102. And there is a calendar on the code revisor's office. But the second, excuse me, the second step is to file the CR 102 with the proposed text attached to the CR 102, and it needs to be published 20 days before a public hearing. So we will have a public hearing. We will have a comment period after the council directs the council staff to file the CR 102. But my question is for the process between CR 101 and CR 102. Again, we can use Chell's proposal and make it ready for the council to review, or we can use the Chell's proposals and go back to the technical advisory group for a review and recommendation. That's the part that I'm missing, and I'm not sure how to proceed.
Can I jump in for a minute?
Go ahead.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, I would note that absent any clear direction from council on what the process would look like, we would defer to the bylaws, which would provide for rules to be considered by the TAG and then the appropriate committee prior to going to the council. I also want to have folks recall that RCW 1927A 025 provides among other things rather, that when considering amendments to the state energy code for residential buildings, the Building Code Council shall establish and consult with a technical advisory committee that consists of several affected parties.
Okay, thank you, staff and Dirk. I guess I will clarify the motion to suggest that the TAG is convened at the nearest reasonable opportune time. I guess I don't need to give a time frame, right? But I would suggest that the TAG is convened to look at one or more proposals for the residential and energy codes, and they're separate tags, so they would need to be each convened separately. Could be probably on the same day, but yes, I will modify the motion to require the tags to be convened to look at any proposals to, de-risk from an EPICA perspective. Is that enough clarity, Stoyan?
Yes.
Okay.
My second still stands.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, we'll continue discussion. Micah, go ahead.
Thanks for modifying your motion, Chair. I would support that motion to go into rulemaking to make changes to whatever portions or sections of the code needs to be modified in order to comply with those, with the EPCA rules. Even though there is, some gray area there, I think some of the public comment mentioned, why wasn't this addressed? I believe it was addressed. There are certain exceptions from EPCA for building codes and construction codes, and a Ninth Circuit ruling might have been broad in scope, and so we need to address that specifically and not look back at how we may or may not have addressed the appliance issue or code language based on EPCA, because we did, and unfortunately it went a different direction. We need to modify that. So I'll support Chael's motion in modifying those provisions of the code and sending this back to the TAG for that. Thanks.
Craig, go ahead.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment that we decouple it from EPCA, because as I read the Rivera case, there are other things than just EPCA, and it would restrict the TAG and the council from actually fixing everything. So just a friendly amendment if Chael's open to that.
I guess, Craig, could you refresh my memory on what other kinds of things you're talking about?
They are basically close to EPCA, but they don't all reference EPCA. And I think there's a potential that we could get into the middle of this and find out that the Rivera suit has other things out extraneous to that. I agree that we should be narrow, but I think it's too narrow this early to restrict ourselves to strictly EPCA. I'd leave the team, the council, the latitude to address all the potential things that are coming up on this thing.
Okay, and would it, if I modified it so that it just said EPCA and EPCA adjacent things?
That's fine.
Or, okay. If possible, I would like to modify my motion to include that we begin CR 101 rulemaking for, in light of the Berkeley decision, for EPCA and EPCA adjacent items, including things brought up in the Rivera suit.
Thank you, Chael. You should be an attorney and a gentleman and a scholar. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, Roger, do you agree that?
I'm going to agree with it, although I also want to speak to it a little bit. I think where the Ninth Circuit Court case has been, finalized or determined, the Rivera suit is still just in litigation. There's no results. We don't know the results of it. We can anticipate. I want to caution us about thinking that every aspect of the Rivera case is something that we need to address. And I will reiterate my comment. Today we're talking about Rivera. In a week from now, we might be talking about the case that City of Berkeley has asked to have their case reheard. The issues surrounding this are going to be changing significantly, I believe, over the coming months. So I believe the task, as the motion that we currently have on the table directs the rulemaking to do the best that we can to limit our risk of a lawsuit. But we can't anticipate what's going to come next. And at some point, we just need to do our best to reduce our risk and pass an energy code and move on. So, but yes, I do support the revised amendment.
Okay, thank you. Jay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. When we discussed this on our May 19th meeting, we heard a lot of disagreements with the policy of the new code, asking us to consider the Berkeley decision and concerns about training and implementation. And while at that time, the Building Code Council discussed and rejected potential delays, I would note that we're now a defendant in the court case. This is the Rivera case that several of my colleagues have mentioned regarding the energy code provisions, and I think this demands action at this point. So I support the motion. I appreciate that the motion is talking about mitigating legal risks with EPCA preemption, the Berkeley case and the Rivera case. I am not interested in a policy rehash of the energy code, and hopefully this language will help focus the TAG discussions and any proposals that come out of this. I would note from our last meeting that the revised cost benefit analysis indicates that heat pumps under the residential code standards are cost effective for meeting our energy efficiency targets even before the social cost of carbon emissions. And I want to focus any clarifications that we make that that provide options to maintain those same efficiencies. So I'm going to be supporting this CR 101 process. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Micah, go ahead.
Sorry, just another point of clarification, and maybe this is for Storian. Would this be considered an off-cycle rule making CR 101 process?
Yes.
And would we title it as such?
We follow the same procedures.
I understand that, but but we don't necessarily follow the same procedures in that an off-cycle rule, does that have to sit through a legislative cycle where a normal rulemaking would, and this probably would not? That's my question. So that's why I'm asking if it is specifically an off-cycle rule. Maybe Derek needs to answer that.
Yeah, this is what I was going to say. It is an off-cycle rule, but I will refer to Derek to clarify that.
Yeah, here's what I'm prepared to say on that, Micah. Thank you for asking the question. I think that this is clearly an off-cycle rule and should be treated accordingly. The implications of the statutory procedural requirements is something we'll work with you on as the rule develops, as far as timing and the effectiveness and the like.
Thank you.
Hi, go ahead.
So I do have concern about the unexpectedly broad scope of the Ninth Circuit's decision and how that's been explained to us through counsel, and what the possible loss of control over the code changes if we don't take some kind of action today. So
I would agree that it's short delay and initiating the appropriate process to revise the code strictly for compliance. As Jay said, not to rehash the underlying policies is the best of a bad set of choices before the council. What I'm not 100% sure about is whether or not the entire code has to be delayed versus particular pieces. I heard a couple of opinions from council members. If anyone else had a contrary opinion about that from the council, my ears would be open to hear that.
Okay. Ty, at this time, the motion is not to delay the codes. We've separated out the motion. Right now, this is to start the CR 101 process for the commercial and residential energy code.
And we're only discussing that piece.
Right now, yes.
Okay, very good.
Senator Wilson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm curious, do you know, are you in doing the CR 101, are you going to be including or asking for code change submissions then?
No, the CR 101 doesn't include any proposal. We are just saying that we will be doing something. So it's just the form that we need to file.
And then when it goes to 102?
The code proposal, yes, the language needs to be prepared for the CR 102 filing. But
And changes will be considered then? Code changes submissions would be considered then?
yes, so the council will direct staff to file the CR 102 with the approved proposals, and then we have, it's about 2 months, a comment period and public hearings to receive testimony before the council votes and direct staff to file the CR 103, which is the final language that is adopted.
Okay.
So between the CR 101 and the CR 102 filing, this is when we need to agree on the language and make it ready for the filing.
I think part of, oh, excuse me, Senator.
Well, I was just going to clarify then, do we not know what the rules are for the off-cycle rewriting of these? Do we know? We know that it doesn't have to go to the legislature? Or go through the state or through the legislative process like they do normally?
Senator, I'm not prepared to render an opinion on that specific question right now. I can say in the past, off-cycle rulemaking has gone into effect at the time of the filing of the CR 103, but we'll look at the timing issue as this, if this motion is approved and the CR 101 is filed, we'll look into the timing issue. I know that's not a super satisfactory answer, but I do understand that there's some legal questions in connection with that, and we want to make sure we get the best answers to the council we can.
Okay, thank you.
Roger, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify, so we are going to be accepting code change proposals, but the code change proposals do have to be related to reducing the risk of compliance to EPCA. That's my understanding of the current proposal. It is not opening up the whole energy code to any code change proposals.
That's how I read it. I read it that the TAG is going to be working on those proposals directly related to the motion, which is narrowed down.
That was my understanding as well.
Yes. Okay, any further discussion? Okay.
I guess I would like to, sorry, I'd like to.
Does Roger have his hand up still?
It was from before.
I guess I would like to slightly revise my motion to be clearer that it's EPCA and EPICA adjacent things and not necessarily the Rivera lawsuit. I think the Rivera lawsuit is based on EPCA or based on the Berkeley decision, but I'd like to limit the motion to responses to Berkeley decision and EPCA related things. So that's a minor revision to, I guess, the wording of the motion.
Okay. Roger, I think you're thinking and pondering. I'll wait.
I'm okay.
Okay, good. Okay. Is there any further discussion related to the latest amendment to the motion? Micah, go ahead.
I hate to raise my hand on this. I'm really not understanding what Chael is trying to do. I think the Rivera lawsuit is very specific in sections, and the Berkeley decision is very broad. And when you talk about EPCA related, I'm not certain that, I'm not even certain I would know how to put in a proposal that is EPCA specific based on what you're trying to do at the tag level. So I guess I'm just lost, and I don't know, maybe I'm asking stupid questions. Thanks.
Jill, does it have to do with the 7 items in EPCA?
Yes, it would probably have, it would, and that's a really good point. It would have to do with ensuring that the energy code to a reasonable extent complies with the energy code exceptions within EPCA. And I guess EPCA adjacent things that have been brought up in the Berkeley suit.
Okay, Mike.
That's my understanding of the motion.
And I'm sorry, are those 7 items specific to the energy code, or are they specific to codes as exemptions? And that's why I'm concerned with the motion and how it's being presented. I understand we're trying to go into rulemaking, but we're trying to limit the scope on that rulemaking, and I'm not sure pointing to the Berkeley decision does that.
Hello, I'm going to jump in. The motion is directed specifically towards the energy code, residential and commercial, right?
Correct.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Micah?
Sure. I'll like I said, I'm just kind of confused. I'll let it go. It just, I want to support going into rulemaking. I'm just not sure trying to limit the scope on something folks may or may not understand is appropriate, but I think we'll all get there, and we'll get some proposals that are great and some that are like some of the ones I'd present, which may be terrible. Anyway, thanks, folks.
Senator Wilson, go ahead.
Thank you. I keep hearing, earlier I heard close to compliance and then reasonable extent. It either complies or it doesn't. So I think that's where the waters are muddied here, is that we can't have reasonable extent that it complies. It has to comply, or we won't be in compliance with the Ninth Circuit Court ruling. So are we sure by doing this new rulemaking, we're going to actually be able to comply? Because there are 7 instances here where you have to comply with all 7 of those, correct? I think that's part of what Micah is getting at.
That's correct.
If I can respond, I guess, from a legal perspective, there are risks, higher risks and lower risks, and all sorts of risks. But the idea that something has no risk is a near impossibility. So that's, I guess, why I put that word into the motion.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Roger, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just add that I believe that compliance is not black and white, and there will be people that will argue one way or another whether our proposals that come out of the tag, whether they do comply. There may very well be, it may not be unanimous that these proposals comply, and that's why I think it needs to be, we need to do our best to make sure that we are in compliance with those 7 items criteria for the exception in EPCA.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, anything further from council before we do a roll call? Okay. The motion on the table is to start the CR 101 process to make modifications to the commercial and residential energy codes to reduce the risk related to the Berkeley decision and EPCA adjacent items, and to start to convene pegs for both the residential and commercial energy codes. Shell, did I capture that?
Great.
Okay, Roger, do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, with that, let's take a roll call.
Jill Anderson,
Yes.
Jay Arnold,
Yes.
Todd Bayreuther,
Aye.
Justin Burko,
Yes.
Micah Chappell,
Yes.
Tony Down. Oh,
Yes.
sorry. Let me see if I can fix my audio.
You sound very authoritative with the echo.
She is.
The face behind the curtain thing, right?
That will be better. Tom Handy,
Yes.
Roger Haringa,
Yes.
Matthew Hefner,
Yes.
Craig Holt,
Yes.
Ty Menzer,
Yes.
Pete Reiki, Katie Sheehan,
Yes.
I think that's everybody there.
Okay,
Right.
motion carries. Okay, with that, we will open it up to council discussion again.
I believe still have the floor.
Oh, I'm sorry, my apologies, Joe, go ahead.
Oh, no worries. I will make a motion to delay all of the codes for 120 days, starting on June 30th, 2023. Using emergency rule process.
Excellent.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Chell and a second from Roger. Thank you. Chell, would you like to speak to your motion?
No, thank you. I think I've already spoken to it.
Okay, Roger?
I would just say, as a practicing engineer, I know Micah will talk about the effect on code officials, but as a practicing engineer, to have one code, whether it's just the energy code, but the building code and all the other codes are adopted in, we're using 2021, but the other code we're using 2018 until 2021 comes out, or even if we took most of the 2021 code, energy code, and had pieces of it that we delayed. As a practicing engineer, understanding what I'm supposed to design my building to is almost impossible to track. So in my opinion, from a practicing structural engineering perspective, if we're going to delay one code, we need to delay all of them so that they all become effective at the same time.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Further discussion from council? Micah, go ahead.
Since Roger said I needed to speak, just kidding, Roger. I agree with Roger on this. The consistency when you adopt all the codes at the same time is what we strive for. And I don't necessarily want to say it, but yes, we've done it this way for a long time, where we keep all the codes together in one cycle, and we try to enforce those that way as well through our jurisdiction. So we want to keep them together. So we will support the motion to delay all the codes under the emergency rule process that Jill mentioned. Thanks.
Thank you. Todd, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So I want to, again, ask for a no on this. We are delaying life safety codes that are integrated when we approve them. for a code that per RCW is at a lower priority to, fix a moving target here. So I stress, I believe in entering the rulemaking process to fix that in the energy code, but not to delay life safety codes because of it. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. With that, we'll do a roll call.
Joe Anderson,
Yes.
My
Jay,
apologies. I'm sorry. Let's back up. The motion on the table is for an emergency rule for 120 days, starting June 30th, to delay all of the 2021 codes for Washington State. Go ahead. My apologies.
Joe Anderson,
I'll still vote yes.
Jay Arnold,
Yes.
Todd Bayreuther,
No.
Justin Borgo, Micah Chappell,
Yes.
Tom Handy,
Yes.
Roger Harenga,
Yes.
Matthew Hefner,
Yes.
Craig Holt,
He had to leave.
Ty Menser,
Yes.
was that a yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Katie Sheehan,
Yes.
and backup was Justin Borgo, still in the room?
I am, and that was no.
Okay, motion carries 8-2. Okay, any further discussion from council on agenda item number 4? And Todd, I think your hand is just still up from before, but if you have something new, go ahead. Okay,
No, thank you.
thank you. Okay, if there's nothing further, then that concludes our meeting. Thank you, everyone, for making the time on short notice and getting a quorum. Appreciate that. And with that, we'll adjourn.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you.